Summer evenings in Salt Lake City usually bring a gentle peace to its neighborhoods, but July 16, 2006, would shatter that tranquility forever, leaving an indelible mark on a community and exposing the darkness that can lurk behind familiar faces. In a quiet West Side neighborhood, where children's laughter typically filled the air until dusk, 5-year-old Destiny Norton was about to become the center of a nightmare that would grip the nation. The evening began like any other. Families finished their Sunday dinners, children squeezed in their last moments of weekend play, and parents prepared for the week ahead. The Norton family home, a modest 2-story structure with a small backyard, sat in a row of similar houses where neighbors knew each other by name. Destiny, a vibrant kindergartner with chocolate-brown pigtails and an infectious smile, had just finished her favorite meal of macaroni and cheese. What happened in the next 15 minutes would launch one of Utah's most intensive manhunts, expose a predator hiding in plain sight, and change how an entire community viewed the safety of their children. As the sun cast long shadows across Destiny's backyard, no one could have predicted that this ordinary Sunday evening would become the beginning of an 8-day ordeal that would test the limits of human endurance, hope, and justice. Destiny Norton wasn't just another face in a crowd of kindergartners. Teachers at her elementary school described her as a spark of pure joy, always first to raise her hand and last to stop giggling at lunchtime. Her brown eyes had a way of lighting up rooms, and her tendency to skip instead of walk made her instantly recognizable throughout the neighborhood. At 5 years old, she had already developed a reputation as the local butterfly chaser, often seen darting after them in her front yard with outstretched arms. Born to Rick and Rachel Norton, Destiny was their miracle child. After years of trying to conceive, the Nortons had almost given up hope when Rachel discovered she was pregnant. From the moment she arrived, Destiny lived up to her name, becoming the center of their universe and the glue that bound their family together even tighter. The Norton home sat in a working-class neighborhood where children played freely on the streets and residents left their doors unlocked during the day. Rick worked as a mechanic at a local garage, while Rachel balanced part-time work with being a devoted mother. Their modest income never prevented them from making Destiny's life magical. Her room was a testament to their love. Walls painted purple, her favorite color, with hand-drawn butterflies, and shelves lined with books they read together every night. In the months leading up to July 2006, Destiny had started showing an interest in art. Her kindergarten teacher kept a folder of her drawings: stick figures holding hands under rainbow skies, cats with impossibly long tails, and houses with heart-shaped windows. She had just learned to write her name, practicing it everywhere she could, including the sidewalk in front of their house with her prized chalk set. The summer of 2006 had been particularly special for the Norton family. Destiny had mastered riding her pink bicycle with training wheels and was eagerly anticipating their planned August trip to Disneyland, her first vacation beyond Utah's borders. She had been counting down the days on a paper chain hanging in her bedroom, removing one link each morning with ceremonial importance. Sunday, July 16th, began with Destiny's usual morning ritual. She woke early, as 5-year-olds often do, padding into her parents' room, clutching her favorite stuffed unicorn. The family attended morning service at their local church, where Destiny proudly showed off her new light-up sneakers to her Sunday school classmates. The afternoon drifted by with the lazy comfort of a summer weekend, a family barbecue, bubble blowing in the backyard, and Destiny practicing her cartwheels on the patchy grass. At 8:45 p.m., as twilight settled over Salt Lake City, Rachel Norton made a decision that would haunt her forever. Destiny had begged for just 5 more minutes of outside play, a common negotiation between parent and child. The backyard was fenced, the neighborhood familiar, and Destiny knew the strict rules about staying within the yard's boundaries. Rachel watched from the kitchen window as her daughter chased fireflies, her purple shirt making her easy to spot in the growing dusk. The phone rang. It was Rick's mother calling about plans for the upcoming weekend. Rachel stepped away from the window, keeping one ear tuned to the sounds of Destiny's play. The call lasted no more than 3 minutes. When Rachel returned to check on her daughter, the backyard was empty except for a single white sandal lying near the fence. The next few minutes unfolded in a blur of increasing panic. Rachel called out Destiny's name, her voice growing more urgent with each unanswered call. She checked the front yard, then the side of the house, her heart racing faster with each empty space she encountered. Rick, hearing the distress in his wife's voice, rushed outside to join the search. Within 15 minutes, neighbors emerged from their homes, flashlights in hand. The Nortons' next-door neighbor, Ellen Martinez, called 911 at 9:13 p.m. while others began methodically searching nearby yards and streets. The initial police response arrived at 9:22 p.m. Officer James Rodriguez and his partner found Rachel Norton in a state of near hysteria, clutching Destiny's abandoned sandal. The first hours of any missing child investigation are crucial, and the Salt Lake City Police Department moved with practiced efficiency. They established a command center in the Nortons' living room, while additional units began canvassing the neighborhood. Detective Sarah Chen, a veteran of the department's Special Victims Unit, arrived at 10:15 p.m. to take charge of the investigation. What troubled investigators immediately was the confined space where Destiny had vanished. The backyard measured only 30 by 40 feet, surrounded by a chain-link fence. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle, and perhaps most puzzling, Destiny's other sandal remained perfectly placed by the back door, where she had been taught to leave her shoes. As midnight approached, the search radius expanded to a 10-block area. Police dogs picked up Destiny's scent from the clothing provided by her parents, but lost it at the sidewalk in front of the house. Security cameras from the convenience store 2 blocks away showed no sign of a child matching Destiny's description. It was as if she had simply evaporated into the warm July air. The Nortons' living room became a whirlwind of activity. Detectives interviewing family members, officers coordinating search patterns, and crime scene technicians photographing every inch of the property. Through it all, Rachel sat on the couch, clutching Destiny's unicorn, repeating in a whisper, "I only looked away for 3 minutes, just 3 minutes." By dawn, the disappearance of Destiny Norton had transformed from a neighborhood crisis into a full-scale criminal investigation. The FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team was notified, and special agents were en route from Denver. What no one realized yet was that the truth behind Destiny's disappearance lay just 3 doors down, behind the walls of a house where evil had found its perfect hiding place. The first rays of Monday morning's sun illuminated a scene unprecedented in Salt Lake City's history. Over 2,000 volunteers had gathered at the command center hastily established in the parking lot of the local Methodist church. They came armed with water bottles, hiking boots, and an unwavering determination to find Destiny Norton. The FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team arrived at 6 a.m., bringing with them sophisticated search equipment and decades of experience. Special Agent Marcus Thompson took control of the operation, implementing the Bureau's proven protocols for child abduction cases. The neighborhood was divided into precise grid patterns, with each search team assigned specific sectors to ensure no stone went unturned. Local law enforcement expanded their efforts exponentially. Helicopter units from the Utah Highway Patrol buzzed overhead, using thermal imaging cameras to scan the area. K-9 units worked tirelessly, their handlers pushing through exhaustion as they covered miles of urban terrain. The Salt Lake City Police Department's Cybercrimes Unit began analyzing local surveillance footage, creating a digital map of every camera within a 5-mile radius. The media descended en masse, turning the quiet neighborhood into a circus of satellite trucks and camera crews. Destiny's story captured national attention, her school photo appearing on every major network. Nancy Grace dedicated an entire show to the case, while local stations provided round-the-clock coverage. The intense media spotlight brought both benefits and complications. While it helped spread awareness, it also created a frenzy that sometimes hindered investigative efforts. The volunteer response grew more organized with each passing hour. Local churches opened their doors as rest stations for searchers. Restaurants donated thousands of meals. A local printing company worked through the night producing flyers with Destiny's photo, which volunteers distributed across 3 counties. The Mormon Church activated its vast network of members, mobilizing additional volunteers from across Utah. Detective Chen established a tip line that quickly became overwhelmed with calls. Every lead, no matter how seemingly insignificant, required investigation. Reports of suspicious vehicles, unusual behavior, and possible sightings poured in. A team of detectives worked in shifts, following up on each tip, conducting interviews, and cross-referencing information. The search pattern expanded methodically. Teams combed through abandoned buildings, crawl spaces, and storm drains. Divers checked local ponds and canals. Urban search and rescue teams explored construction sites and condemned properties. Each location was meticulously documented and marked off on the command center's massive wall map. By day 3, the physical and emotional toll began to show. Rachel Norton, who hadn't slept since Destiny's disappearance, was barely able to stand during press conferences. Rick Norton channeled his anguish into action, joining search teams from dawn until dusk. The strain on law enforcement resources reached critical levels, with officers working double shifts to maintain the search intensity. What made the search particularly challenging was its urban setting. Unlike wilderness searches where tracking is more straightforward, the city environment presented countless hiding places and escape routes. Every garbage bin, every shed, every parked car could potentially hold crucial evidence. The sheer volume of areas to search, combined with the time-sensitive nature of child abductions, created immense pressure on all involved. As day 4 turned to 5, hope began to mingle with dread. Statistics showed that the chances of finding abducted children alive decreased significantly after the first 48 hours. Yet, the community's resolve never wavered. Prayer vigils were held nightly, attended by hundreds. The search radius now extended 20 miles from the point of disappearance, making it one of the largest urban search operations in Utah's history. Behind the scenes of the massive search effort, detectives were piecing together a disturbing puzzle. The initial neighborhood canvass had yielded crucial information that investigators kept from the public. Several residents reported seeing a young man watching children play in the days leading up to Destiny's disappearance. More troubling were reports of a figure matching his description lurking near the Nortons' fence line just hours before she vanished. Detective Chen's team conducted extensive background checks on every registered sex offender within a 10-mile radius. Each was interviewed, their alibis verified, their movements tracked. But it was the interviews with immediate neighbors that produced the most significant leads. 3 separate witnesses described unusual activity at 522 West 600 North, the residence of Craig Roger Gregerson. Gregerson, a 20-year-old who had moved into the neighborhood 4 months earlier, initially appeared cooperative. He joined search parties, handed out flyers, and even attended one of the prayer vigils. But subtle inconsistencies in his behavior caught the attention of trained investigators. During his first interview, he provided a detailed timeline of his activities on the night of Destiny's disappearance, too detailed, as experienced detectives noted. The investigation took a crucial turn when forensic analysts processed surveillance footage from a neighbor's security camera. Though partially obscured by trees, the video showed a brief flash of purple, the color of Destiny's shirt, near Gregerson's side gate at approximately 8:50 p.m. on the night she vanished. The timestamp aligned perfectly with the 3-minute window when Rachel Norton had stepped away from watching her daughter. Detective Chen ordered discreet surveillance on Gregerson while building probable cause for a search warrant. Officers observed him making multiple trips to dumpsters in different parts of the city. His internet history, obtained through a subpoena, revealed disturbing searches about missing children cases and methods of concealment. More alarming was his recent purchase of industrial-strength cleaning supplies in plastic storage containers. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A teenage neighbor reported seeing Gregerson carrying what appeared to be a heavy garbage bag to his basement in the late hours of July 16th. When questioned about this, Gregerson's explanation contradicted his previous statements about his whereabouts that night. The inconsistency was subtle but significant enough to strengthen the case for a search warrant. FBI behavioral analysts developed a profile that matched Gregerson's patterns. They noted his strategic insertion into the search efforts, a common technique used by perpetrators to monitor investigations and maintain the appearance of innocence. His careful cultivation of a helpful neighbor persona while living just 3 doors down from his victim fit the profile of an opportunistic predator. As the investigation intensified, surveillance teams documented Gregerson's increasingly erratic behavior. He began missing work, made unusual late-night trips to his car, and was observed pacing in his backyard during early morning hours. Cell phone records showed he had turned his phone off during the crucial time window of Destiny's disappearance, the only time it had been deactivated in months. The final piece fell into place when crime scene technicians discovered microscopic traces of purple fabric on Gregerson's side gate. Forensic analysis matched the fibers to the type of cotton blend used in Destiny's shirt. With this evidence, combined with the accumulated circumstantial details, investigators had enough for a search warrant. What they would find inside Gregerson's house would confirm their worst fears and bring the 8-day nightmare to its tragic conclusion. Craig Roger Gregerson presented the facade of an ordinary young adult trying to find his place in the world. At 20 years old, he worked part-time at a local hardware store, lived alone in a modest rental house, and generally kept to himself. But beneath this unremarkable exterior lay a carefully constructed deception that would soon unravel, exposing a predator who had methodically positioned himself in the heart of a family neighborhood. Born in Provo, Utah, Gregerson's childhood showed early warning signs that went largely unnoticed. School records revealed a pattern of disciplinary issues, particularly involving younger students. Former classmates later recalled his unsettling fascination with true crime stories and his habit of photographing children at playground. Yet, somehow, these red flags never culminated in official intervention. The investigation into his background revealed a calculated approach to selecting his residence. The house at 522 West 600 North offered clear sightlines to several backyard play areas, including the Nortons. Gregerson had viewed 12 other properties before choosing this one, all in neighborhoods with high concentrations of young families. His landlord remembered him specifically requesting information about the neighborhood's demographics during the rental process. In the months leading up to Destiny's disappearance, Gregerson had carefully crafted his public persona. He volunteered at community cleanup events, offered to help neighbors with yard work, and even donated to local children's charities. This manipulation of his public image served a dual purpose, gaining the trust of local families while deflecting potential suspicion. His digital footprint told a darker story. Forensic analysis of his computer revealed thousands of searches related to child abduction cases, particularly those where perpetrators had evaded capture. He had studied cold cases, learning from others' mistakes. His browser history showed regular monitoring of local news about missing children, and he had created detailed documents about neighborhood children's routines. The hardware store where Gregerson worked provided him with access to tools and materials that would later become evidence. Security footage showed him purchasing zip ties, duct tape, and cleaning supplies in the weeks before the crime. His employee discount card tracked the purchase of a large plastic storage container just days before Destiny's disappearance. Perhaps most chilling was his behavior during the search efforts. Body camera footage from police officers showed Gregerson actively participating in searches, offering suggestions about where to look, always steering teams away from his property. He attended 3 different prayer vigils, standing near the Norton family, even offering words of comfort to Destiny's mother while knowing exactly where her daughter was. Investigators discovered that Gregerson had no prior criminal record, but this clean history masked years of concerning behavior. Former neighbors from previous residences reported similar patterns of watching children, though none had ever filed formal complaints. He had moved frequently, never staying in one location longer than 8 months, except for this house, where he had signed a 1-year lease. His methodical planning extended to establishing alibis. He had carefully constructed a timeline for the night of Destiny's disappearance, supported by receipts and witnesses he had intentionally interacted with at specific times. Yet, this very precision ultimately contributed to his undoing. The timeline was too perfect, too rehearsed, revealing the calculated nature of his actions. As investigators pieced together Gregerson's true nature, they uncovered a predator who had spent years perfecting his technique. His choice of victim, timing, and method of concealment all pointed to someone who had likely contemplated similar crimes before. The question that haunted investigators wasn't just about Destiny Norton. It was about whether she was truly his first victim. Dawn broke on July 24, 2006, as tactical teams surrounded Gregerson's house. The search warrant, obtained at 4:30 a.m., authorized a complete search of the property. Detective Chen had strategically chosen the early morning hour, knowing Gregerson would likely be asleep. The element of surprise was crucial. They couldn't risk evidence destruction or, in the faintest hope that Destiny was still alive, any harm coming to her. At precisely 5:15 a.m., the SWAT team breached the front door. Gregerson, found in his bedroom, offered no resistance. As he was secured, teams of forensic investigators began their methodical search of the house. The first floor yielded nothing unusual, appearing almost too pristine, with the sharp smell of cleaning products hanging in the air. The basement door, however, told a different story. Multiple locks had been installed recently, far more security than typical for a basement entrance. As investigators descended the stairs, the temperature dropped noticeably. The basement was divided into several rooms, most filled with ordinary storage items, but one door stood out. It had been reinforced with a new deadbolt, the fresh scratches around the lock suggesting recent installation. At 6:23 a.m., investigators opened that final door. The room was small, no larger than a walk-in closet, and dominated by a large plastic storage container. The type matched the purchase recorded on Gregerson's employee discount card just days before Destiny's disappearance. The grim discovery they had feared but expected lay inside, Destiny Norton's body, carefully concealed beneath layers of plastic wrap. The crime scene unit worked with painstaking precision, documenting every detail. The room revealed evidence of careful preparation. Fresh paint on the walls to cover any traces of evidence, new carpet recently installed, and industrial-strength air fresheners placed strategically around the space. Everything pointed to premeditation. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, but a carefully orchestrated abduction and murder. Upstairs, during initial questioning, Gregerson's calculated facade began to crack. When confronted with the discovery, his response chilled even veteran detectives. "I knew you'd find her eventually," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I just wanted to see how long I could make it last." He then provided a confession that would haunt investigators for years to come. The medical examiner's preliminary findings confirmed the community's worst fears. Destiny had died within hours of her abduction. The cause of death, manual strangulation, suggested a personal, intimate form of murder. Evidence indicated she had been alive for approximately 2 hours after being taken, time during which the initial search had passed within yards of where she was held. As word of the discovery spread, the neighborhood that had maintained hope for 8 days collapsed into grief. The command center, still buzzing with volunteer searchers preparing for another day, fell silent as Detective Chen delivered the news. Rachel Norton, who had never left the command center during the entire search, collapsed into her husband's arms. The crime scene processing continued for 3 days. Every inch of Gregerson's house was documented, photographed, and searched for evidence. Investigators discovered a hidden camera system he had installed, focused on surrounding yards. They found drawings and plans suggesting he had studied the Norton family's routine for weeks. Most disturbing were journals detailing his obsession with Destiny and other neighborhood children. The discovery brought answers but left the community grappling with harder questions. How had a predator hidden so effectively in plain sight? What had they missed? The house at 522 West 600 North, once an unremarkable part of the neighborhood landscape, became a symbol of the darkness that can lurk behind ordinary facades. The prosecution of Craig Roger Gregerson moved with unprecedented speed through Utah's criminal justice system. Within hours of his arrest, he waived his right to remain silent and provided a detailed confession. District Attorney Michael Jensen, recognizing the community's need for swift justice, personally took charge of the case. The evidence against Gregerson was overwhelming. Beyond his confession, prosecutors had assembled a formidable case: DNA evidence from the crime scene, surveillance footage, purchase records, and his detailed journals. The methodical nature of his planning emerged through evidence that showed he had studied the Norton family's routine for weeks, even timing how long it took Rachel to answer phone calls. On August 2, 2006, Gregerson appeared for his initial court hearing. The courtroom overflowed with community members, many wearing purple ribbons in Destiny's memory. His appearance, calm, collected, and seemingly unbothered, sent shivers through the gallery. When asked how he pleaded, his quiet, "guilty," echoed through the stunned courtroom. The plea negotiation process revealed the full extent of the prosecution's strategy. In exchange for avoiding the death penalty, Gregerson agreed to provide complete details of the crime. His account, delivered in a 14-hour recorded confession, exposed a level of premeditation that shocked even veteran prosecutors. He described watching Destiny for weeks, learning her habits, and waiting for the perfect moment when parental supervision would momentarily lapse. During the sentencing hearing, the impact statements painted a devastating portrait of loss. Rachel Norton, speaking directly to her daughter's killer, delivered a powerful testimony that left no dry eyes in the courtroom. "You didn't just take my daughter," she said, her voice unwavering. "You took every birthday she'll never have, every Christmas morning she'll never see, every moment of joy she could have brought to this world." Judge Elizabeth Ruby Mills, known for her measured approach, departed from her usual judicial demeanor. Her voice carried controlled anger as she delivered the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus consecutive maximum terms for each additional charge. She specifically ordered that Gregerson serve his sentence in maximum security, with restricted privileges. The plea agreement included unusual provisions designed to protect other families. Gregerson was required to provide detailed information about his methods of selecting victims and avoiding detection. This information would be used to train law enforcement and help parents protect their children. He was also barred from any form of communication with the outside world beyond immediate family and legal counsel. The legal proceedings concluded with unprecedented speed, taking just 6 weeks from arrest to sentencing. This swift resolution, while unusual, served multiple purposes. It spared the Norton family the trauma of a lengthy trial, provided immediate closure for the community, and ensured Gregerson would never again pose a threat to children. The case led to significant legal reforms in Utah. The legislature passed Destiny's Law in 2007, strengthening penalties for child predators and mandating improved communication between law enforcement agencies about suspicious behavior around children. The law also established new protocols for emergency response in child abduction cases. As Gregerson began his life sentence at the Utah State Prison, the legal chapter of Destiny's story closed. But the impact of the case would continue to influence criminal justice procedures and child protection laws across the country. The swift, comprehensive prosecution became a model for handling similar cases, demonstrating how justice could be both thorough and expedient when the system worked as intended.